Hello everybody, welcome back to another video with Lim Reviews. Now today we're going to be checking out the brand new device from Poco. This is the Poco X3 GT. So I've been using this device here for the past 2 weeks now. Believe it or not, it's been that long. And I definitely want to share with you guys my personal and honest opinions about this particular device right here. Now, I'm not going to do a full unboxing video, but here's the box basically. And what it came with is actually a pretty large 67-watt charger here. You also get your Type-C cable. And last but not least, a transparent case in the box. So that's what you get in the box, pretty straightforward here. So first up, let's just talk very quickly about the price for the Poco X3 GT. Now here in Malaysia, this device has not been launched yet, so I do not actually have the official pricing, but based on prices in China as well as the previous Poco X3 Pro, I'm just guessing that this device here will be launched at a pretty attractive price point. This is definitely going to be one of those very affordable smartphones that you might want to get because it offers a lot of performance for the price that you're paying. So yes, let's jump into the full review right away. Now first up, let me just talk very quickly about the build, the design and all that. So you can see here on my device right here, mine is the black version. And if you take a quick look at it, you notice that on the back panel here, it is a very glossy kind of panel. It is sort of a mirror. You can take a look at it and you can see your face in it. And more importantly, it has a slight gradient, a silver at the top, and it shifts slowly towards black at the bottom. And even if you tilt it at a certain angle, you'll be able to see like some kind of starry kind of background, bling bling stuff at the back panel here. So that's pretty cool. In my opinion, it feels just like any other budget device would feel like. Nothing too spectacular, but what I do want to point out here is that it is quite slim compared to the previous Poco X3 Pro that I also have here. So much slimmer and much lighter in terms of just the feel and all that. So that's definitely good in my books. I always prefer slimmer devices. Now, onto the sides here, we also have a fingerprint scanner on the right hand corner that is actually very fast because it is a physical fingerprint scanner. So it's very good for unlocking your devices, especially in these days where we are always, like wearing our mask and all that. So very good in that department. So that's in terms of the design and build quality. Now flipping the device to the front, let's talk a little bit about this. We have a pretty nice display here, but let me talk a little bit about the bezels. So on the left side, the right side, as well as the top section, it is all pretty symmetrical, but at the bottom you do get a tiny bit of chin. Again, not a big deal here. It's pretty standard these days. And dead center at the top, you do have your selfie camera. It's a 16 megapixel selfie camera that you get here on the Poco X3 GT. Now let's talk a little bit about this display because it's a pretty interesting one here. So in terms of just numbers alone, this is a 6-inch LCD display that is pushing out 1080p. Apart from that, you also need to know that this is a 120 Hz refresh rate and it has a touch sampling rate of 240 Hz. So definitely sounds very nice here. Apart from that, it also comes protected with the Corning Gorilla Glass Victus. So you know that this is a pretty solid device here. In fact, my device here did not even come with a screen protector pre-installed. So I guess Poco must be pretty confident with the Corning Gorilla Glass Victus right there. So yes, those are just the numbers, but in terms of day-to-day use, how does it feel like to use this display? Well, honestly speaking, this LCD display here is not the best, and what I mean by that is that brightness levels max out at about 450 nits, so it's definitely not the brightest, especially if you are using your device outdoors most of the time. It'll be a little bit challenging to see what's on the display because it's just not bright enough, but on the contrary, if you're the person who's always indoors, I mean like lockdown and all that, and you like to use your phone mostly at night, well, the good news here is that the lowest brightness levels it can go to is down to just 1 nit, guys. So this is actually very good for those of you who like to turn off all the lights at midnight, just browsing, God knows what, but yeah, that is very suitable for you guys out there. So on one hand, it does not get very bright, but it is able to get very dim. Hooray! Apart from that, yes, it does come with that 120 Hz refresh rate like I mentioned, so it's very smooth. In fact, the performance of this display is very similar to that of the Poco X3 Pro. So if you're familiar with that device, it is almost same on this Poco X3 GT right here. Alright, now let's move on to the next point. Let's talk a little bit about the performance, what's powering this device and all that. So you must already know that this device is powered by the Dimensity 1100. It is a pretty nice processor. It is very similar to the performance of the Snapdragon 860. In terms of just single core scores, it is very close to the Poco X3 Pro, but in terms of the multi-core score, and that is when the devices is mostly using most of its cores, which is also the more important part, it does outscores the Snapdragon 860 by a little bit. So that's what you can have in mind. It's also worth mentioning that we do have some kind of cooling system going on here. So if you play games like Genshin Impact, Mobile Legends and all that, it does not really heat up. It is fairly cool most of the times, and so far the highest temperature that I got based on what I measured here is under 40 degrees Celsius. So that's definitely good, because anything above than that gets very uncomfortable to your hands. Now, just in terms of the graphics, I just want to point out very quickly here that in terms of Mobile Legends, if you're a Mobile Legends player, the graphics maximum will go all the way up to Ultra. So in terms of PUBG, graphics go only up to HDR, but for frame rate, it goes all the way up to Ultra. You can take a quick look at this picture right here. And last but not least, for Genshin Impact, it can definitely run at 60 FPS, but temperatures will go slightly higher than the other games that I just mentioned. So that's the info for you if you are a gamer. Now, enough about the processor. Now let's talk a little bit about the RAM and the internal storage. So in terms of RAM, my model here comes with 8GB of RAM, so that's great. Apart from that, in terms of storage, you have the choice of 128GB or 256GB. But the good news here is that, again, this is UFS 3.1. So unlike other brands that are charging very high prices for their devices, but only UFS 2.1, this thing, the Poco X3 GT here, is something that you can count on to give you fast storage. Moving on, the user experience. Now this device here runs the MIUI 12.5. Apart from that, it also has dual stereo speakers that does get pretty loud, so that's very good. But the more important thing that I want to stress here is the haptics engine. So the Poco X3 GT here is using an X-axis haptics motor, and what that does is that it gives you this kind of shorter and crisper vibrations. So definitely it is a very good thing here, because haptics is very important in the overall user experience. If you have a really lousy kind of haptics engine, you have those terrible vibrations, you will not feel pleased at all with the overall experience. But yes, the haptics engine, the X-axis one on the Poco X3 GT, is something that you can rely on, so you don't have to worry about that. So overall, in terms of day-to-day use, you will not have any issues with this device at all. Throughout the 2 weeks that I've been using the Poco X3 GT, everything has been very smooth, launching apps has been very quick, and I've had no issues at all with the performance of the Dimensity 1100. Moving on to my next point now, let's talk a little bit about the cameras. So at the back here, you can see that we have a triple camera setup. We do have a 64 megapixel main sensor, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide, and a 2 megapixel macro lens. Now again, I did not really test out the macro lens here, but I want to focus a little bit on the 64 megapixel main sensor. So this sensor here is actually quite, it's a very familiar one. It's the OV64B, and you've actually seen it on other devices. If I'm not mistaken, the OnePlus Nord CE also has the same sensor. But in terms of overall pictures, I would say that the pictures here are just pretty average. It's good at daytime, it's also alright at the night. In fact, I would say that the photo quality coming out from smartphone these days are really depending on your personal preference. So far, I have not seen any major issues with the Poco X3 GT here. Pictures turn out pretty detailed. You have sufficient saturations. The color accuracy is good as well. Anyways, I'll show you guys a couple of samples here which you can take a look at and let me know whether or not you like them. Alright, now that we've done seeing the photos coming in from the Poco X3 GT, let me talk a little bit about the battery in the back. So although this is a fairly slim device, and it's also very lightweight by the way, but it does come with a 5000 mAh battery and is able to last 1 day for sure without any sweat. Now the best part here is that it supports the 67 watt charging, which I mentioned earlier on. And this charger here actually pumps up the juice in this Poco X3 GT very fast. And what I mean by that is that it goes from 0 to 100% in just about 40 something minutes. So it's very good here, very fast for the charging speeds on the Poco X3 GT. No issues there. Alright guys, I think that's pretty much what I would like to cover in my 2-week experience with the Poco X3 GT. Again, Poco has always been releasing device that comes with great performance for very affordable pricing, and it is the same case for the Poco X3 GT. If you have that kind of money, like 1,000 or 1,100 ringgit, or USD 250 to 300, and you're looking for one of the best devices, I think you can't really go wrong with the Poco X3 GT. Naturally, it doesn't come with the best build quality, it doesn't come with the best kind of materials all around there, but you're getting the most performance for your buck, and that's what's most important here. Alright guys, I think that's it for this review of the Poco X3 GT. If you have any more questions, let me know down in the comment section here. I'll try to answer every one of them, and if you like this video, don't forget to give it a like, a sub would be great, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you everybody. Bye!